The pen tool is probably one of the most difficult tools in Photoshop to use. It's a very complex and precise tool, and if you're not very well educated on how the pen tool works, it's going to be a pain to figure out how to use. But if you do know how it works and you can use it properly, it's probably one of your best friends in Photoshop. And in this tutorial, I'm going to show you exactly how the pen tool works, and hopefully you'll learn some of the ins and outs of how to use the pen tool. Now, the pen tool can be found in our tools palette. It can be accessed either by pressing the P key or going over to the side here and clicking on this tool right here, which is our pen tool. Now at the top in our options bar, we have a few options. We have our shapes layer option and we have our paths option. Those are the two main options that we're going to be discussing in this video. We're going to start off with the shapes layer. The shapes layer allows us to use our pen tool to create any sort of shape we want. Unlike the rectangle tool, which allows you to create predetermined shapes just like this, the pen tool will allow us to create vector shapes in any sort of shape we want. So if we grab our pen tool and make sure that the shapes layer button is checked on, we can go ahead and start clicking and create any sort of shape that we want in any shape and size, just like this. But the great thing about the pen tool is that we are not limited to creating polygonal shapes. The one that you just saw was polygonal, but if we wanted to create curves in our shape, we can very easily do that as well. Let me show you how that works. Let's say you're in the process of creating your shape and you want to finish your shape with a curve. All you have to do is click on the last node here and then drag your mouse. You'll notice that a curve starts to form. You can drag your mouse as far out as you want to create any sort of curve that you please, just like this. Now let's say you wanted to create some sort of a circular form. So for this example, I'm going to be going ahead and tracing out the bottom half of this orange down here at the bottom to show you how to create a curvy shape using the pen tool, and I'm going to show you some of the problems that you may run into when using the pen tool. So I'm going to start off by making my first node right around here, and then I'm going to click and drag somewhere around this area to create our first curve. Now once that curve is finished, we're going to choose another curvy area somewhere around this area, and as you can see, it completes the curve for us. But we may run into a problem when we get to an area like this, a sharper area. We run into two problems here. Number one, we can't see where we're going to trace, and number two, when we start making our line, we have this big curve at the top right corner. We don't want that. So problem number one, we can't see underneath. There's an easy fix for that. On your keyboard, use the number keys to increase or decrease the opacity of your shape. So let's say we want to see through a little bit. We're going to go ahead and press the number 4 to decrease our opacity of this shape to 40%. If you want to increase it later on to 100%, press the number 0. So let's go back to 40%. So now that we can see through, we can continue tracing the bottom half of this orange. But we have a problem. If we go ahead and try and make a curve here, we have this big loopiness at the top right corner. We don't want that. We want to eliminate that curve for now. So we're going to hold down Alt on a PC or Option on a Mac and click on our last created node. This will eliminate the curve that we were about to make. And now we can go ahead with a fresh start and create a brand new curve, just like this. And we can continue around the orange like that. And we have our completed shape using curves using the pen tool. And we can once again increase the opacity back to 100%. Now here's one thing that people get annoyed by. You can see this line going around our shape. That's just the path of our vector shape. To get rid of it, on a Mac hold down Command Shift, on a PC hold down Control Shift and press the letter H. That will hide or show the path of your vector shape. Now let's say you're not 100% happy with the curves of the shape that you just created and you want to edit them a little bit. Well, luckily there's a way to do that. If we head over to our tools palette, we can go ahead and grab our direct selection tool, which allows us to edit all aspects of our shape. We can go ahead and click on that, click on our shape, and then find any of the nodes that we want. So we can click on these nodes here. Let's say we want to edit this curve right here. We can click on it and we can edit the curve of both sides of the nodes, just like this. We can pull it any way we choose. We can decrease the curve, we can increase the curve, we can even move the curve up or down. So we have complete flexibility over how the curves of our object curve around the shape, and we can control it any way we like. The only problem that you may run into is if you remember a few minutes ago when we eliminated one of the curves at the top here, we took this node and we eliminated the curve at the top. Right now you can't edit the curve right in this corner here. But if you hold down on a Mac Command and Option, or on a PC Control and Alt, we can go ahead and create a brand new curve by just dragging on that node like that. And we now have that curve back once again. So we can go ahead and control it like that, so it's not as sharp as it was before. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it the way it was. So if you're looking to edit any of the curves on your vector shape that you just created using the pen tool, definitely check out the direct selection tool. That will allow you to edit any of the curves and even add curves if you wanted to. One more thing I should note, if you right click on the path, we have a few other options. We can go ahead and add an anchor point so we can add more curves to our object, just like this. We can also define it as a shape. Once again, if you right click on your shape, you can go ahead and click on Define Custom Shape and name your shape Orange Peel, and it will save it to your shapes library so you can use it anytime you want in the future. And of course, one last thing I should probably mention, just like you can with other shape tools, you can go ahead and add to your shape area, you can subtract, you can intersect, and you can exclude overlapping shape areas, just like you can using your other shape tools and selection methods. And that's pretty much about it for creating custom shapes using the pen tool in Photoshop. We're now going to quickly discuss what the paths option is. Now, unlike the shapes tool, we cannot create custom shapes using the path tool, but we can do a few other things. So let me go ahead and delete this layer. Now the path option works identical to the shapes option. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to make sure to create a new layer. When you're creating a new path, it's always good to start it on a new layer, not the background layer. Now because the path option works identical to the shapes option, I'm going to quickly go around this orange and create the path. Just like this. And you'll notice that this time it's not filling in with black because we're not creating a shape, we're only creating the path. So there we go, we have the path, and you can see the path defined by the path that we can see around the orange. Now we have a few options this time, a few different options. We can go ahead and right click on our path. We can make it as a selection. As you can see, we have our make selection dialog box. We can feather the radius, anti-aliased, any of these options here. We click OK, and we now have a selection from that path. We can right click the path once again and choose fill path, but the problem with filling the path, we can fill it with foreground, background, a custom color, pattern, history, anything like that. But the problem is, unlike using the shapes option, this is not a vector shape, so you can't resize it and keep the quality like you can when we created a custom shape using the shapes option in the pen tool. So that's another option. We can right click and then click stroke path. A lot of people wondered what this does. Basically, we can use our brush settings. Let me cancel out of this and go into our brush settings quickly. And here we have a 13 diameter pixel brush, hardness at 100%. Going back to the pen tool, right click, stroke path, and we can go ahead and fill it with our brush settings. Click OK, and it will outline the path for us just like this. We can also choose to simulate the pressure, stroke path, simulate pressure, and click OK, and you'll notice it kind of fades out towards the end just like that. So you can use the stroke path option to really make some nice designs using custom lines, using your brush settings or your pencil settings or anything like that. And once again, just like we were able to using the shapes option, we can right click, add anchor point, or we can go ahead and use the direct selection tool to adjust curves on our path. We can also go to the top and add to our path, subtract, intersect, or exclude, just like we can using the shapes tool and most of the other tools in Photoshop. So that's pretty much it for the pen tool. It is a very confusing tool, very complex and very precise. It may take a while of playing with it to really get used to it, but if you do know how to use it properly, it can be one of your best friends in Photoshop.